So we see now weird and perverted some of the police's decisions are, and you see a lot of them with this family as well. And for me, it just think we're covering something up. That's my opinion. There's something stinks here. There doesn't seem to be no, the sort of what do they call it? The holy three: openness, honesty, and transparency that the police always go on about. There don't seem to be any of that in the inquiry. So, yeah, she could be up against the beast here, but we don't know. Only wait and see when disclosure is made, and we've got to be careful that we don't in any way harm her case. That's the one thing we've got to be very, very careful of, and I would implore anyone viewing this or listening to this to do the same. Whilst it's in the judicial process, any interference of that is contemptible, and you're going to get nicked. I'll be very, very careful.
Yeah. Apologies, I completely froze and dropped out of the chat there for a couple of minutes, John. So I didn't hear your last comment, but I'm going to jump over to some questions and things from the audience. And some of them are fairly straightforward, standard. So, do you think Julia will get DNA test now she's being held in prison? So I don't know if that means...
No. Her DNA will be taken. It would have been taken. And it will remain on the system. And so that will be tested against the DNA database, but not in respect of any missing kids or anything like that.
Yeah.
No. But her DNA profile will now be on the British system, yeah.
Okay. All right, hang on. Do you know the lady Fia that was involved with Julia at the start of Julia's journey?
Fia?
Yeah, I don't know if you know about Fia. A couple of questions, but I think you really knew Julia after the 2023 chapter of her journey. I know, sadly, Julia's pets are now with new homes. I can confirm that. I'm going through the questions, and the reason that I'm not reading most of them out is because I can't ask John these questions. We need to be better. We need to word things better, people. We've got to be careful how we're wording things. I don't think there's anything the Polish embassy can do, Jojo.
Well, they may well have been informed. I mean, it is protocol that when a foreign national is arrested and charged, that their embassy is informed. Whether that goes on, I'm not sure. However, the Polish were quite unique in as much as they were very, very proactive and pro-British justice. So whenever one of the Poles was arrested, I mean, this was going back to early 2000s and that when they joined, that agreement, that open borders agreement came in. Even if a Pole was in trouble for parking fines, they wanted to be told, and that they would extradite anyone back to their country for the most minor of offences. So the Polish, out of all the countries that had this unilateral agreement, were the most effective and the most proactive in extraditing their people or authorising their people to be extradited back to the country and face justice back there. So I think that the Polish authorities will probably get involved with her now. Yeah.
All right, what about, is there a DNA database for missing children and persons in the UK and Europe? If so, why hasn't Julia's DNA been tested for that?
Well, I mean, again, if they're missing, how do you take their DNA? Unless they've been arrested and they're on the DNA database, then they go missing, then there will be a DNA profile. But, unless everyone is DNA'd at birth, which will be a civil rights matter, then no. I mean... this is a balance you've got. It's a bit like chipping a dog. Years ago, you didn't have to chip a dog.
That's a terrible but really well put analogy, right? 100%. Listen, I agree, right? If it wasn't for the evildoers that run the world, John, us all having, you know, all our passport and a chip in our hand and all this brilliant idea, it's just the evildoers that would mistreat it all that's the problem, right? So are we a bit misled by movies, John? Right? Because when you see a movie and someone goes missing, you see that scene where they're walking around the bedroom picking up a hairbrush or something like that. Is that not a common occurrence in a missing child?
It depends. I mean, this is a tragedy also. When I was speaking out and I was highlighting the child trafficking, child prostitution, as we called it back then, one of the common things that these kids had, two common things, that firstly, they were all subject to care orders. So they mainly were kids that were in care homes or from dysfunctional homes that all local authorities were monitoring. And secondly, was that they were missing persons. But the police didn't care, and the kids returned, so they weren't missing for long, so there was no need to debrief or deal with them. But an abducted child, so if a child is abducted, then that it is fast time. Then it's quite an impressive protocol that they have, in which they all connect with the borders agencies. They start pinging mobile telephones. They do real time, fast time. And analysis and triangulation and stuff like that, and AMPR. And this is what we found with the case of Wilfred Wong when he was involved in the abduction stroke kidnap of that kid, in which he got the hefty 17-year prison sentence. We saw real time, fast time proactivity of tracking a kid down. So when they want to do it, they can do it, and it is impressive, and then also they can get the sniffer dogs in, and then they can pick up a scent and get the dogs, following the trail.
Yeah, actually, that's something I wanted to get a little refresher on you from, John. What was in the missing child's case? There was a sniffer dog report, right? And I can't remember if it was they found something, then it was dismissed, or they found something that couldn't have happened. What was it that happened with the sniffer dog?
Well, the dog picked up a scent, and it's picked up a dead body scent, and that was bolstered up by the fact they picked the same scent up on the toy. And also in the car that they've been using. Okay. So and bear in mind that dog, the FBI went and classed it as one of the best sniffer dogs in the world.
Yeah. We done a whole show on this, John, and you went into the whole science behind it. Now, how likely, and this is just, please feel free to take the mickey out of me because of the stupidity of this question, right? How likely is 3 false hits from a cadaver dog?
Well, it's highly unlikely.
They're
usually
they're just trained for cadavers and all those things associated with
well, they do have dual purpose dogs, but they can't lie. They can't lie, and that's it. They're indicators, so they're a very credible indicator. I mean, I found them fantastic. I would use these sniffer dogs, firearms and drugs ones, on near enough every single case I went on, and they were brilliant. I mean, there's one dog that can sniff out money.
John, do you know the most recent one I've seen is the AI abuse material hard drive and mobile phone sniffer dogs?
Yes, right? I heard of that. Yeah,
dude. Like the training course, all the big like the pipes that all at different angles, the big concrete circles, and they go and hide something. And it's always they're so happy to do their job, man.
Yeah.
See, if we could all be as happy as a sniffer dog sniffing for something, we'd have a great day, right? Everyone would have a great day.
They were brilliant. They were brilliant, and they always,
Here's this is where my mind was going with this. Can a cadaver scent be transferred if a teddy was to fall on the floor where someone had passed away previously, like another person, for example? Now, John, don't think about the mathematics of the likelihood, right? Would it be possible? And here's another question. If I was to stand in like a dead something, like a rabbit, brought in roadkill on my shoe.
Yeah, no. And I'll tell you for why. Because there's a thing called collagen. So they're trained. There's only two animals that are almost identical in cadaver stuff is pigs and human beings. They're almost identical in scent. So the cadaver dogs are trained on sort of rotting, and it's to do with rotting as well. Because when the body dies, the heart stops, and then the blood coagulates, and bacteria is then released, which then starts to break your body down, and that's what they're trying to pick up on. So human beings and pigs. If you was to do with pigs, maybe, but anything else, no.
Okay.
So whether or not they can pick up the scent of different bodies, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure. You'd have to speak to a dog handler on that one. But
and again, we're not talking about the mathematical probabilities, right? Because the mathematical improbabilities of something the week before happening in that hotel room that resulted in another unaliving that no one knows about, and then it just so happening that room was used with Maddie, and it's another. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's very, 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 very unlikely.
Well, let's look at another way, right? So, drug detection dogs will give what they call a knock, an indicator, and it usually is sitting down next to someone or something that contained or has contained drugs. So they will give a knock if they've detected drugs, but you won't know whether that drug is cannabis, heroin, crack, or whatever. It will just sit down. So that will be down to the officer then to search for what drug it is.
Now here's an interesting one, right? And I'm going to slightly reword Alex's question. Just it's safer to reword it, right? So if John thinks the little girl in question is no longer alive, right? How does he explain everything Julie has shown us? Now, John, don't answer this. None of us. I am here. The channel is here. Sean is here, and John is here to get the truth for Julia. Okay? For me, the little girl, the missing girl in question, it's a tragic, horrific story. And I'm here to get Julia answers. And there is a truth here somewhere. And John is the reality check that most of us, when we're very close and we're passionate about stuff, passively, selectively remember information that it helps the narrative we want, and we sometimes sort of forget key points that, whether you want to admit it or not, exist in this case. And I think that question's one that is hard to answer because I think.
Well, the thing is, I mean, I base my opinion. On what I've seen, what I've read, work that's been done, the media, the alternative media, and my experience, and also I did have some information from an insider on there, who sort of made it quite clear who was responsible, and then you got forensic experts such as statement analysis that have got an extremely high probability rating. And again, of course, they weren't there, and it's open to an argument, but they're pretty much absolute. You've got the dogs, what they had. You've got, the whole bizarreness with these weird statements and the weird claims that those present had made. So that's what I'm putting on. I'm pretty certain in my own mind, that little lassie is gone and never to come back. I weren't there. I don't know. And again, I made it clear to Julia what my opinion is.
Correct.
And it is an opinion. I'm not God. I don't know. But it doesn't mean that that I can't entertain it just because I don't believe what she's saying. It doesn't mean I can't entertain it and look at the merits of it,
Yeah.
because your mind's like a parachute. It only works when it's open, and a detective's mindset should be to go towards uh, claims and also go away from it. So to go towards your target and information that also takes you away from it.
Yeah.
And when you get people that just go towards a target and won't entertain anything that takes it away, this is when we have travesties of justice like Rachel Nicole, the Rachel Nicole murder, where you've got people like Colin Stagg stitched up for a murder he didn't commit, whereas the guy who did commit, Robert Napper, actually claimed to the police earlier that he actually admitted committing it. But the police were so entrenched in it that it is Colin Stagg and no one else. And you've got this arrogant tunnel vision, and of course it wasn't him, so, but it doesn't mean that I can't look into the merits of what she's saying or give her some assistance in trying to get the truth out there, and whether that's the forensic truth or one word against the other or whatever it might be, but will it gain the burden of proof, which is beyond all reasonable doubt? I don't know. And again, there's other things that need to be taken into account. You've got to take into account people's bad character. You've got to take into account their history, their medical history, their mental health history. And, we don't go around with our doctor's notes stapled to our head, do we?
I need to reiterate, just, John, we freaking love you here, man, right? And, it doesn't change I just want everyone to understand. I'm still so here for the truth. We're all here for the truth for Julia, just in case anyone thinks that, John's opinions or anything like that are designed to sway anyone's mind or anything like that. It's not at all. It's just John has reminded us of the reality and the facts of all of this. And we can all look inside ourselves and know we wear who we are publicly, and then there is who we are privately. We would all love to be able to put our hands up and say, oh, I wholeheartedly know this X, Y, and Z about anyone involved in this case, but none of us do. And it's wise, like a parachute, like John always says, to keep your mind open. And that goes for John with his beliefs, but keeping his mind open for the new possibilities, evidence, and things that come forward. And it's the same with the rest of us. And we all love Julia a bit, and we want to see her free as soon as possible.
Look, I've got a very good friend of mine, and he'd experienced abuse as a young child, and he decided to take some sort of, I don't know, retribution, whatever it might have been, against the perpetrator. And it's an ongoing thing, so I'm not going to discuss it. I'm not going to narrow it down any more than that. And we sat down and went through his case, and there were things he did that were understandable. I might not have agreed with it, but legally they were wrong. And I had to tell him that. And he sort of took it well, but didn't. And then you have to say, well, look, the old saying is don't shoot the messenger. In order to sort of help you, we, like a solicitor, we need to know exactly what you've done and what you haven't done.
Yeah.
See, solicitors, what they say to people is, you've got to tell me what you've done, and they look at the evidence against them. And if the person is going to lie, deliberately lie, that solicitor has to say, I'm professionally embarrassed, and stand down, right? And that means that their client has said, look, I've lied to you, and I'm going to go to court and I'm going to lie to the court. And the solicitor, under their code of conduct, cannot represent a person. So sometimes it's better that the solicitor, and on many occasions, does not know the truth. And they will word and manufacture their questions around their client, so actually they don't get the truth. And what they will say is, well, maybe this is a scenario. And they will actually give them a scenario which prevents their client from having to lie to them. You know, did you do it
Yep.
because of this? And bring up a lawful defence. Well,
Yeah.
that probably is nowhere near the truth. But the moment their client tells them the truth, they can't represent them. So they'll go, yeah, oh, yeah, that was it. And then they'll manufacture a story around that lawful defence, which will potentially get that person off. But if it was about the truth, right, it would be a different story. But the legal system is based on proof, not truth. Proof, not truth.
Yeah.
Whether people like it or not, it ain't John Wedger's rules. That's the rules. You either prove your case or you don't. The courts don't want to hear emotion, and they're not interested in the truth either. They just want the proof.
Yeah. And I just want to say to everyone, John and I have been working together a long time. We share a lot of the same views on certain people and activities and nastiness in the world.